非常欢迎，也非常感谢各位参加今日 TWNIC DotAsia 签署双边合作网络安全域外效力记者会的现场。Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MOU signing ceremony and press conference between DotAsia and TWNIC on the collaboration of anti-phishing activity. 我们知道全球不断爆发因为域名遭到滥用导致的资安事件，对全世界的经济以及消费者都造成非常大的损失。因此，财团法人台湾网路资讯中心特别与 DotAsia 亚洲域名注册机构携手合作，以及在网际网路名称与号码指配组织 ICANN 亚太区代表远端连线的见证之下，一同来签署合作备忘录。As we know, there are frequent outbreaks of cybersecurity incidents caused by DNS abuse worldwide, which have caused incalculable losses to the global economy and consumers. And therefore, TWNIC has joined hands with DotAsia to sign the MOU under the remote witness of the Asia-Pacific representative of ICANN. 那首先，我们也非常感谢今日众多的贵宾一同莅临现场。那现在也让我来为各位介绍。We are especially honored to be able to introduce VIP in the event. 那首先，我们要来欢迎 ICANN 位置支援组织位置委员会 Address Supporting Organization Address Council 委员，同时也是 TWNIC 国际事务委员会主任委员，以及 DotAsia Board Member 詹婷怡主任委员，也请起身来跟我们打个招呼，欢迎，掌声欢迎。接着，我们也欢迎 TWNIC 国际事务委员会的委员陈应竹委员，非常感谢各位贵宾的莅临。那首先，在活动的一开始，我们也要来邀请到 DotAsia 亚洲域名注册机构行政总裁 Mr. Edmond John 透过连线的方式呢，为我们今天的活动进行开场。In the very beginning, we would like to welcome Mr. Edmond John, CEO of DotAsia, to kick off our event today online. And Edmond 同时呢，也是 ICANN 的董事 ，he is also board director of ICANN. And now, please join me in welcoming Mr. Edmond John， 欢迎。
大家好，很高兴能够在这里跟大家见面。我叫 Edmond， 中文叫钟宏安，可是我的国语比较烂，所以我还是转为英文来跟大家分享吧。在香港的母语是广东话。那反正就换成英文。So thank you very much for having me here, and today I join you virtually, but really I hope that the pandemic will be behind us soon, and we can get out of this, and I would once again be just a short hour's flight away from the lovely city of Taipei, and to be there with you. At DotAsia and myself personally, we have had a really long and fruitful relationship with Kenny Huang and the team at TWNIC, especially working together on, for example, making Chinese domain names possible, such as Dian Taiwan, and to ensure that the traditional Chinese characters that Hong Kong and Taiwan shares is not relegated to a second-class citizen behind English or the simplified Chinese. So this is, a very important work that DotAsia and myself, and working with Kenny and the TW team. On the topic today, as you mentioned, the internet becomes an indispensable part of our life, especially in the pandemic. Cybersecurity threats also become a top priority for guarding against. As petty as local criminals perpetrating fraud against the elderly, for example, or people hijacking corporate networks and data leakages, to recently we hear of real cyber warfare and disinformation campaigns, as we see in the war in Ukraine today. We understand the importance, on one hand, the safety and the resilience of the internet, as well as on the other hand, the interoperability and interconnectivity of the one internet. So what is important to today's topic is that while withstanding cyber attacks like in Ukraine, originating from Russia, the global internet community, DotAsia being part of which, stands in solidarity both against the aggressor and also in ensuring that the global interoperability of the internet is upheld for the people in Russia and in Ukraine. So this is the type of delicate balance that is relevant to the topic today. Top-level domain registries like .tw or .asia, we only have this very blunt tool to take down the entire domain name. So for example, if you think of a problematic website on a page on Facebook, to take down the whole Facebook would be a little bit too much, isn't it? But we must be trying to use this tool of taking down malicious registered domain name, but at the same time to tackle and support the security and stability of the internet. DNS abuse is certainly a hot topic in the industry today, and it continues to evolve. Today's announcement with TWNIC, we hope, represents a really concrete step towards enhanced mitigation against DNS abuse, to establish a trusted channel between the organizations .asia and TWNIC to jointly tackle phishing and DNS abuse. We hope this will be the beginning of a movement, and we hope other top-level domain registries in the region and beyond will join us in this work. This delicate balance that TLD, top-level domain registries, must maintain while forming a network that effectively guard against abuse is what we want to talk about today. Of course, we are only a small part, and this is only a small step. But we hope this small step can catalyze further measured actions. Just as cybersecurity and resilience of the internet plays only a small part in the war in Ukraine, we hope that this humble step will be the beginning of a movement that will ripple through the global internet community to make a real difference for a safer internet for the people in Asia and around the world. Thank you.
谢谢各位今天邀请我来参加我们今天的网络安全域外记者会。那非常感谢哦。那我们这个 .asia 其实是跟 TWNIC 已经有多年的合作关系。那我们一起推广 .tw 这种繁体字的这个网站。那我们认为繁体字的网站和英文的网站和简中的网站比起来也是一样的重要。那今天的主题呢，其实是网络。那网络是我们生活中现在尤其疫情当中非常重要的一部分，所以我们要特别注重这个网络安全，打击网络的犯罪。因为现在有很多骇客已经骇进我们的比如说私人跟企业里面，那这样网络的犯罪情况呢是非常猖獗。我们希望要透过安全有弹性的网络来保障大家的这个网络的安全活动。那尤其现在这个俄罗斯对乌克兰的网络攻击也是目前大家常常看到的新闻之一。那.asia 我们也团结一致来反对这样的网络攻击事件，所以对于 ccTLD 跟 gTLD 我们必须要合作，一起来打击我们的 DNS 的滥用情况，并且下架不安全的网站。所以今天我们的 MOU 签署仪式呢，我们是希望能够加深彼此的合作关系，那让彼此成为信任的通报对象，一起反对网络钓鱼的机制。那并且希望呼吁让大家更多的社群一起加入我们。今天的一小步会是我们网络安全一大步。谢谢。
谢谢 Mr. Emon 中为我们活动进行开场。紧接着要邀请到 ICANN 副总裁兼亚太运营中心总经理 Mr. Jialong Luo 透过连线的方式来为我们今天活动致辞。And next, let's invite Vice President, Stakeholder Engagement and Managing Director, APEC ICANN Mr. Jialong Luo to join us online and give us his remarks. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Jialong Luo.
大家好，我是罗家荣，我来自新加坡，是 ICANN 的亚太区域运营中心的总经理。今天非常荣幸能够参与这个签署协议的这活动，当个见证人。我的中文也是一般，所以呢，我今天准备的那个致辞也是用英语来准备的，所以不好意思，包涵一下。So, ladies and gentlemen, a great good afternoon. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be a witness at this MOU signing ceremony, and thank you, Kenny, for inviting me to be a witness. In the internet space, the model of governance is the bottom-up multi-stakeholder model. So later, Kenny will be talking a bit more about what this model is and how it works in the internet space. So I won't talk about that too much. But amongst others, the topic of DNS abuse is a very hot topic at ICANN. So today, all of us need the internet in some form or another to do our work. And cybersecurity in the past is something people are concerned about. Today is seen more as a requirement, already a kind of basic requirement for all of us. And DNS abuse is a subset of the broader cybersecurity umbrella, and it is something that the ICANN community is very concerned about. So under this umbrella, the ICANN community came up with a trusted notifier framework. It is a best practice framework developed by the community at ICANN, by the contracted party house. And it's a framework essentially open for all registries and registrars to use to contribute to fighting DNS abuse. And I'm very heartened that TWNIC and .asia are moving ahead to collaborate based on this framework. And you're doing your part, TWNIC .asia, as Edmund said, to make the internet safer and more secure. And as Edmund talked about it, it might be a small step, but I share the same vision as you that hopefully we can influence the wider APAC region to follow in your example. There's an analogy that I like to talk about, which is, when we think about making the DNS safer and more secure, all of these little efforts, it is as important as contributing to the very hot topic of climate change. So every small thing we do, like turning off the air conditioning when you don't use it, using one less straw, using one less plastic bottle, you don't see it immediately, but over the longer run, they make a big difference. So in the same vein, every little contribution to enhancing the security and the safety and stability of the domain name system contributes to a safer internet overall. And so the question is whether cybersecurity is as important as this topic as climate change. So what do you think? And if I switch to Mandarin, we think that it's equally as important because 我们在这行呢都是靠互联网吃饭的。就算你不是直接靠互联网吃饭的话呢，你的工作方面都日常生活中呢都会用到互联网。所以对这个话题跟 climate change 我觉得是有一定的相等的重要性。So from my office at ICANN, we'll continue to support the community in your efforts, and we strongly support and congratulate TWNIC and .asia for your efforts. And we will continue to be working with you within the community to foster even more discussion on how can we collaborate and strengthen the entire ecosystem, especially within our region. So here I'll just share a couple of upcoming events, which I also hope that the wider community can participate. So next week, we are holding our inaugural Asia Pacific DNS Forum. And we will also feature TWNIC and .asia's collaboration during the forum itself. And besides next week's APAC DNS Forum, in May, usually we will co-host and partner with TWNIC on a TWNIC ICANN APAC Engagement Forum. So those who are familiar, you will know of this event every year. So we will continue the conversation there as well. And towards the end of the year in September, the ICANN public meeting will be held in Kuala Lumpur within the Asia Pacific region. So I also hope to be able to meet with you in person at the time, and that we can continue to sustain this momentum that is led by TWNIC and DotAsia. So thank you again, and congratulations, DotAsia, TWNIC, Kenny, Edmund, for being trailblazers in the region. Thank you.
好，非常谢谢各位今天邀请我来参与我们的网络安全域外效力记者会的见证。那我刚刚提到说，网络的治理模式是非常重要的。那 DNS 的滥用在 ICANN 这里也是非常重要的一个议题。我们现在的人们对于网络安全是认为是一个基本的需求，所以 DNS 的滥用呢，它也是落在我们整个网络安全的整个大的伞的体系底下。那 ICANN 已经建立了一个体系，那是叫做可信任的通报人的机制，所以这个是给我们所有的域名注册管理机构来使用的。非常高兴我们今天 DotAsia 跟 TWNIC 决定投入来做这个通报人的体制，然后并且能够影响未来我们更多的亚太区域的其他注册管理机构来一起参与。现在 DNS 的网络安全呢，其实我认为是跟环保跟气候变迁的议题是很类似的。这些呢，比如说我们减少使用塑胶袋啊，减少开冷气，都是无法一触可及看到立即的效果，但是就长期而言，他们是会发挥很好的效用的。所以久而久之，我们就能够为网络安全提出很好的贡献。那接下来呢，网络安全这个部分，我想大家都是会每天用到网络，所以跟我们的气候变迁，我们认为是一样的，同等重要。那非常恭喜 TWNIC 跟 DotAsia 决定要一起合作来强化我们整个网络的生态系的安全。那接下来我要分享一下我们未来还有一些活动，像是5月份我们会跟 TWNIC 一起合作年度的论坛，9月份我们在吉隆坡也会有论坛，那也希望大家到时候能够参与。谢谢大家。
We sincerely thanks to Mr. John Luo's remarks. 那接着呢，我们也邀请到在现场网络资讯中心黄胜雄董事及执行长为我们今天的活动进行致辞，掌声欢迎。Let's welcome Mr. Kenny Huang, Managing Director and CEO TWNIC, to make opening remarks for our event today. Welcome.
Okay, thank you everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, Jiarong, Edmund Zhang, and especially our former chairperson from NCC, Nicole Zhang, and thank you all the distinguished guests. It's our honor to have such an event, DotAsia and TWNIC signing a MOU signing ceremony. I think it's critical, as the two people already mentioned, how the digital environment we have today. Let me share some basic information to you. Today we have around 1 million cyber incident reporting through our TWCERT CC. And that didn't count with repeating IP addresses. If counting with the same IP addresses, probably more than 2 million cyber incidents happen every year. Do you know how many has been convicted as crime, cyber crime? 0. That means we're sharing the cyber information to more than 20 countries in the world, and basically all the cyber criminals, they are immune. They don't have any legal liability at all. So let's put it the other way. We need to collaborate with different entities. That entity has an enforcement power to enforce the cyber environment, can push to the behavior that we expected. So we collaborate with different entities. For example, like we collaborate with DotAsia, and we also collaborate with different registrars, and collaborate with ICANN, APNIC, regional internet registries. And through that kind of collaboration, we make sure all the internet government entities, they do have enforcement power to enforce the cyber behavior, can fulfill public requirement. That's why we have come out with this idea. Trust notifier is not something new. Actually, it was happened so long ago, but never happened. Why? Because if you don't trust the people, how can you trust the institution? So we do in reverse way. We try to build a trust through individual, any trustworthy individual. Through that kind of trustworthy network, we try to expand that kind of trust to institution. And eventually, we expand that kind of trust to the nation. That's how we do for cybersecurity. So thank you very much for coming here today to watch out the historical event. That's first time in the history. 2 internet top-level registry, they collaborate together to anti-DNS abuse, put it into real action. And that's why I hope, as Jarrell mentioned, actually there are more to come, and a lot of registry already come to us. They try to figure out how can collaborate with this kind of trust. And once the trust is built, we build the trust through the trustworthy individual, then build the trust through trustworthy organization, institution. Then we probably have more confidence to see we build a better and safer internet to everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Kenny Huang. 我们可以先回座休息。
非常感谢所有贵宾今天来莅临参加我们的网络安全域外效力签署的会议。那我今天很高兴，我们 TWNIC 跟 DotAsia 要共同携手合作，然后我们会我现在来跟大家分享一些基本的资讯，也就是我们每年会有超过200万的网络犯罪，但是实际上受到执行就是执法的案件数呢是0件，所以我们的这个网络的资讯安全是有很大的这个进步的空间，所以我们现在呢已经决定要把我们的这样的合作模式推广出去。那我们和不同的实体一起合作，来强制去做这些网络犯罪的执法。那像是 DotAsia 就是其中一个，我们希望之后能跟不同的注册管理机构有更深化的合作，然后才能执法来面对这些网络犯罪的问题。那我们的做法呢，首先就是要先取得人与人之间的信任，在人与人之间达到信任之后呢，我们再推广到下一个层面，就是机构间的信任。那最终我们希望能够达到整个国家的信任。所以非常谢谢今天各位来参加我们历史性的这一刻，这是一个历史性的活动，也就是2个注册管理机构的单位一起来携手合作打击网络犯罪。那希望未来有更多的域名注册管理机构来跟我们合作，就一起推广，一起深化我们彼此之间的信任跟合作关系。非常谢谢各位。
好，谢谢3位贵宾的致辞。那接下来就是我们今天的重头戏 ，TWNIC 和 DotAsia 反网路钓鱼 MOU 的签约仪式。The next part is the most important part of today's event, the MOU signing ceremony. 那我们现在也有请到 Kenny Huang 来到舞台上，那同时也邀请 Mr. Edmond Chong, CEO of DotAsia, to join us online. And we also have Mr. Jialong Luo, Vice President, Stakeholder Engagement and Managing Director of ICANN, to be our witness today. 好，那现在我们就请我们的黄执行长还有我们的钟总裁可以动手来签下手边的这一份文件。我们也非常感谢各位贵宾在现场的莅临，一同来见证这个历史性的一刻。Okay, both of the representatives finished the document, and now please hold this contract on hand and face to camera. 好，我们把文件面向前方的摄影机，那请所有的摄影朋友、媒体记者可以捕捉这个难得的画面。好 ，3, 2, 1。好，我们后方的媒体朋友也都有拍到照片吗？来，我们看向后方。And for Mr. John, Mr. Liu, just look to the camera. It's okay. 好，3、2、1。还有媒体朋友还没有捕捉到画面的吗？好，那没有的话，我们来进行第2张的合照。那我们请执行长先将文件放下，还有我们钟总裁也可以先将文件放下。那请执行长往中间稍微靠拢一点。好，站在布幕前。好，那我们一起看向前方。Okay, we invite two VIP guests to look to the camera. 好，看向前方的摄影机。 3, 2, 1. Both organizations have demonstrated determination to fight against phishing and fraudulent activities together. 好，那我们再次掌声，谢谢今天所有的贵宾，也谢谢各位一同参与，再次掌声，谢谢，也谢谢执行长。And once again, thank you, Mr. Jialong Luo from ICANN for being our witness today. 那各位来宾，接下来我们邀请在线上的 DotAsia Mr. Edmond Zhong 来为我们分享反网络钓鱼的合作机制。那现在我们就再次来欢迎 Mr. Edmond Zhong to join us online to share with the presentation today.
Thank you. So I guess I will continue the sharing. Hopefully you can see my slides, but I will speak to it as well. So I will spend a little bit of time to just introduce who DotAsia is, and then we'll go into the topic of the day. So DotAsia ourselves, of course, like .tw, operates one of the top-level domains, and the one that we work on is .asia. And but .asia and actually operates as a not-for-profit organization. So since our launch in 2007, 2008, we've been engaged in many different community projects and community initiatives around Asia, supporting Wikipedia, supporting Creative Commons, supporting blogger conferences around Asia, supporting the Asian Film Awards, and so on. So over the years, we have supported many different initiatives, but recent years, we have been focusing a lot more on our vision and mission, and a few areas that we now work particularly on. The vision of .asia is really to promote the cooperative spirit, the collaborative spirit of the Asia-Pacific internet community that I think is very important for peace and for prosperity and for growth in the region. So a couple of the key projects that DotAsia has been working on include youth engagement. In fact, the NetMission.Asia program is one of the world's first internet governance youth engagement program. And the alumni of the NetMission program continues to spread the word and also be engaged in the youth internet governance activities around the world. For example, actually in partnership with ICANN and KISA in Korea, and also TWNIC often participates as well, is the Asia Pacific Internet Governance Academy that we operate we support together with ICANN every year. Another important work is the Asia-Pacific Regional Internet Governance, and DotAsia serves as the secretariat for the initiative since its beginning in 2010. So it's the NetMission program and the Asia-Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum. These two are really the core work that DotAsia works in today. Of course, we also promote .asia as the top-level domain and the usage of .asia domains. And this is, and it's not just in Chinese-speaking communities, but also in Asia around the world, and Asian American, Asian European, and other Asia-Pacific communities as well. One additional member of the team is this little tiger, Agitora. And Agitora actually helps us connect both the market side, market development side, and community side. One thing that Jiarong mentioned is rather interesting, is that the relationship with climate change. And AGI was started in 2016 when the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations were put in place. And this is, today we continue to develop actually last year we started developing an eco-internet index, which looks at the internet's impact on climate change. Again, there is a small part of the work before hopefully a larger future. We put the index together, and a pilot study was done last year, but I think more importantly, it's a work that is about how, part of the work that DotAsia does. And finally, we actually this year will also be taking on one additional top-level domain to support, which is .kids, which will look to be launched later this year. It has been 10 years in the making through the ICANN process, and we will look to launch .kids later this year. So this is a quick summary of what .asia works on. Really on one side, internet governance and youth engagement. On the other side, the market development for .asia and people utilizing .asia domains, the little Tiger project that is supporting sustainability and work against climate change is the Agitora project, and of course the governance of .asia. These four are the pillars of what .asia does. And now to the topic today. And building on some of the work that .asia does, we are cooperating with TWNIC on the specific topic of DNS abuse. This has been a topic, as both Jiarong and Kenny mentioned. It has been a topic for a long time, and what we are trying to develop is really, as Kenny mentioned, a network that is formed by a relationship between TWNIC and .asia, between individuals and between institutions, and trying to make this work. As I mentioned, .asia, our vision itself is to leverage on the collaborative spirit of the internet community in Asia. And again, this particular project is, I think, exemplifies that approach. Well, looking at the topic itself, though, it is very important, as in my opening remarks, I made a particular observation, is that what we can do is maybe a small part. There are a lot more other cyber abuses, fraud, disinformation, and other types of problems that exist on the internet today. However, DNS abuse is a small part of that, is a subset of that. And even out of DNS abuse, there's only a smaller part that top-level domain registries like .asia or .tw can actually, deal with. And you can see that the abuses that we can deal with is also beyond a little bit DNS abuse. There are some abuses that registries do deal with, and that is not DNS abuse, but there are also DNS abuse issues that registries cannot deal with. Some of the issues that is not DNS abuse includes, for example, trademark infringement. Trademark infringement cases are abuses, but they are dealt with outside of what is called DNS abuse. DNS abuse itself is focused a lot more on the technology and the domain name system. And here is really the 5 areas that the general community has quite a bit of consensus around. There's phishing, there's malware, there are botnets, there's farming, and there's spam. And spam as a vector of phishing, as a vector of malware, basically utilizing spam to spread phishing, to spread malware, to spread these issues. Spam as in general, as in unsolicited marketing email, is not necessarily what we're targeting. But if the spam is actually propagating phishing, then it becomes a DNS an abuse issue. But the DNS abuse discussion also evolves over time. And one of the very important development and understanding is that these 5 areas remain the core of DNS abuse. However, there are different situations. There are registrations themselves that are already malicious. So someone registered a domain specifically to do phishing, specifically to spread malware. That is a kind of malicious registration. And sometimes these registrants will jump through different registrars and also jump to different registries, which we call top-level domain or TLD hopping. And this is the type of issues, for example, that why the TWNIC and DotAsia partnership and the MOU, I think, is so important, is because when we see abusive domains under .asia, sometimes when we shut it down, it pops up in TW. And likewise, when TWNIC shuts down an abusive site on .tw, then sometimes the malicious registrant jump to .asia and register. And with the MOU and the secure channel that we establish, we can share information and we can let TWNIC know if there is a problematic site in .tw, and TWNIC can let us know if a problematic .asia domain pops up. I mentioned this in my opening remark already. The DNS abuse issue that registries can handle is very small and is very blunt. When I say blunt, it's because all we can do is take down the entire domain. So if a domain is compromised, or maybe part of the domain is compromised, like, for example, as I mentioned, if you imagine Facebook, if only one page of it is having a problem and spreading fraud, we really wouldn't shut down the whole Facebook domain, right? And that's the problem we face as well. For registries, we have a sensitivity. When we balance between whether to suspend a domain name or not, we have to understand whether it was a malicious registration, whether it was compromised registration, what compromised it did, and what kind of balance we should apply. And the partnership with the MOU with TWNIC makes sense because sometimes when people see abuses, they really want to shut it down immediately. But as registries, we have a sensitivity to know that maybe shutting down the whole domain is not the right approach. We need to address it with other ISPs, with other parties. So the DNS abuse issue is bigger than registries can deal with. Nevertheless, the registry itself can do certain things. And this is the start of a movement, as I mentioned. We believe that this collaboration helps set the right balance and the sensitivity. And we hope that as we start with .tw, as a little bit of a background, .asia's community is actually all around Asia, and many top-level domains, many country code top-level domains around Asia are .asia's members. And starting from TW is the initiative, and we hope that this bilateral relationship and this type of MOU can build a network across different country code top-level domains and other top-level domains around the world as well. So again, this is a small step. We think it's a meaningful step and a balanced step towards promoting the security and stability of the internet. And we hope that this is the beginning of a much larger movement that other registries and other parts of the internet community can actually work together on to tackle DNS abuse. Thank you.
Mr. John, for your informative sharing. 那紧接着，我们也要再次邀请 TWNIC 黄胜雄执行长上台，为我们分享反网络钓鱼的合作机制。掌声欢迎。
Okay, good afternoon again. And thank you, Em, for sharing some information about how we're going to start working with DNS abuse. So I continue NM discussion to carry on the mission to see how can TWNIC and DotAsia collaboration against DNS abuse. So that's the internet policy reference model. And as I mentioned, we're sharing all kinds of cyber incidents with all kinds of cybersecurity institution or cybersecurity organization, but eventually it's not very helpful because they don't have the power of law enforcement. So back to the beginning, how can we enforce the proper behavior in the cyberspace? Basically, you can see the enforcement can be done by, for example, like where should I point to? Okay, hold on. Okay, for example, like a global public good, probably non-enforceable policy, but for critical infrastructure protection, that can be enforced by cyber norm. Later, I will introduce what is cyber norm. And here is some characteristic between different internet governance entity. For example, like ICANN, ITU, IGF, APNIC, TWNIC, IETF, and NATO. And probably we have different characteristics. For example, like we are probably, some of them are multi-stakeholder model, and some of them is a bottom-up model for governance. And some of them, including TWNIC, we set in a standard for internet communication protocol. And also some of them operate based on contractual compliance. Yeah, for example, like all the telecommunication operator, they have contract with TWNIC. We allocate an IP address block to all these kind of telecommunication operator. So based on the contract, they do have a contractual obligation to fulfill some of the requirement from TWNIC. And also all the .tw domain was contracted by our registrar. So we monitor, make sure they have contractual compliance with all the registrar, fulfill basic cybersecurity requirement. So like make sure .tw should be very safe, very secure compared to the global range. So probably of them, they are governmental, and some of them probably international enforceable obligation for state. So back to the initial talk from my slide is how can we regulate cyberspace behavior? The cyberspace behavior can be regulated by 4 driving forces. That was proposed by Lauren Lessig, law professor from Chicago School 20 years ago. And the first driving force is market power. Second driving force is by, of course, law and regulation. Second driving force is architecture, or we call technical protocol. Fourth driving force was cyber norm. And basically, for example, like law enforcement, the law can regulate cyberspace behavior. For example, like GDPR was announced, was enforced by 25th of May 2018. And basically, all the market, all the technology need to comply with GDPR requirement. Thus, you can see the obvious outcome, all the cyber behavior influenced by the regulation. And the rest of the, either by protocol or either by cyber norm, basically it's the same group of enforcer power. For example, like ITIL defined the architecture. So the architecture will influence the market, influence the cyberspace behavior, will influence the regulation as well. But in a long time ago, for example, like 50 years ago or 20 years ago, one individual engineer can define their own protocol standard. But right now, you are not just working on your own. You need to follow all kind of procedure. It's a multi-stakeholder bottom-up procedure. So who defined the procedure? That is a cyber norm. So eventually, everything will be grouped as a cyber norm. Cyber norm means it's a shared expectation of appropriate behavior. So once we define the cyber norm, we follow the cyber norm, then the cyberspace will be act as we expected. Sorry, crash. Next page, please. Whatever. Okay. Can I try? Oh, okay, it's working again. So from this diagram, you can see internet going from the root, then goes to .tw. That's what we own, and we dedicate .com to the other company, for example, company, and they set up a DNS server with a www.company name and .com.tw. And also, it's a similar architecture, similar regulation, similar protocol goes through different registry. For example, like DotAsia, just next to us. So that's the reason I try to work with DotAsia, because follow the picture, we need to work with DotAsia. Then go back to intermediary responsibility. We need to pay more attention on the intermediary, because intermediary, they do have the market enforcement, enforceability. they are well positioned to impose internet policy or regulation function. So we pay more attention on intermediary. But there are different kind of intermediary. For example, like a telecommunication operator, they are one kind of intermediary. And internet domain name registry is a one kind of intermediary. And platform provider, such as Facebook, such as Instagram or Google, search engine is Google, that's another kind of intermediary. So most of big company from intermediary come from states, so they probably regulated by the Communication Decency Act, specifically Section 230. What is a specific Section 230? That means like they have legal immunity to online publisher or for content provided by third parties. So that means the provider, they are not liable for the content provided by third party. They don't liable for that. That's why they create internet innovation. That's why booming the digital economy is everything goes to the root of the regulation, CDA Section 230. So, but for most of the telecommunication operators, they follow telecommunication regulation. I think more or less similar in different kind of world. Follow the telecommunication. Basically, they try to protect the public interest from net neutrality perspective and from universal service perspective. Make sure everyone have equal access to the internet. So they follow the telecommunication regulation. They need to comply with the regulation. But for us, for example, like an internet registry, like a TWNIC or like a DotAsia, we are multi-stakeholder model. The mission we carry is a fiduciary duty. That means we need to collect the feedback from our target stakeholder, our key stakeholder. So every year we run the target stakeholder consultation process to make sure what we do, how we behave, fulfill stakeholder requirement. So that's called fiduciary duties. But internet, when we're talking about internet or we're talking about cyberspace, basically you need to consider every country, every economy, they do have their domestic law. They confine the territory limit. So domestic law only applies to a certain territory. But the internet basically is a borderless internet. Everything happens, even the first packet go to the other side of the globe. So internet basically is borderless internet. So we tried to figure out the connection between borderless internet and national law, but difficult because, as I mentioned, national law do have territory limits. So far we have some solution, but basically all these solutions are not very effective. Let me put it this way. The first solution was MLAT, Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. It's very slow and very complicated. It's difficult to apply. Second solution was Budapest Convention. That's extremely slow, extremely complicated, even not scalable to all the participant countries. Third solution will be through private legal cooperation, but still it's legal transparency because I know someone working in different police department in the other country. Doesn't mean I can sustain the same similar behavior work with the country. So it's legal transparency and also have evidence admissibility issues because you collect evidence from the other country. Whether the evidence is legally liable or legally can be proved to be put in the court is still questionable. The third one was conflict of law. For example, disinformation. You probably you probably against the law when you have disinformation in some other country, but in Taiwan we have freedom of speech. So disinformation probably most of the case will be legally is free. So how can we stop the cybercrime? And it depends on what kind of case you're talking about, and depends on who you're talking about, depends on what kind of result you care. For example, the result can be effective, quick, simple, precise, proportionality, and cost-effective from different results you expect. And the target intermediary, probably talking about ISP, CDN content delivery network provider, or probably hosting provider, platform provider, and probably registrar, registry. So according to like hate speech or disinformation, that's probably more effective when you work together with platform provider. You see the green bar here? It belongs to platform provider. So that means we probably need a regulation to work with platform provider, especially extra large platform provider. Make sure they're doing their job pretty well. And for that kind of cyber event, like a disinformation, scam, fraud, or hate speech, That's from technical perspective. And also, we do have different kind of cyber scenario. For example, like a command and control server, copyright infringement, or malware or phishing. They probably more effective working with the registry like .tw or .asia. That's why we come out with the idea of working with the top-level domain registry and working on specific cyber behavior to regulate registration, ask them to fulfill the contract we give in to them. So last DNS abuse framework, probably Edmund already mentioned a little bit. And so when we're talking about cyber DNS abuse framework, we basically group into 3 categories. The first category, of course, is law. If anything against the law, that would be, for example, when we receive the court order or when we receive a seizure or a sanction, especially like Russia, a lot of countries exercise sanction. So internet governments try to exercise their sanction power as well. So that's based on the law. If law already defined, then you can follow the law, ruling by the law. The second category would be technical category, like if technical identifiable event case, for example, like a malware, phishing, and botnet, that if that case can be technical identifiable, then we can, according to our service agreement, try to take down or try to prevent that kind of cyber attack. And the middle will be self-regulation. If the industry, they do have some expectation to provide some sort of public good to provide to secure the cyberspace based on the goodwill. They work together to define the industrial norm, and then we can follow the norm. In Chinese, could be 自律准则. Okay, the rest of cyber jurisdiction are not very effective. For example, like an existing solution, as I mentioned, is not very effective. And also, we have some regulation. They do have some very limited power for extraterritorial power, like 儿少法46条、动防条例第38至3条、儿少性剥削防治条例第8条 are very, very few. But you're probably going to see quite a lot of more in the next few years. Okay, that's our collaboration with TWNIC and DotAsia collaborate together to against the DNS abuse. That's what we mentioned about what is a trust notifier and fast track mechanism. It's not invented by us. Actually, it's nothing new at all, but we are the first one make it happen. A lot of people just thinking, just talking, we try to make it happen. That's what we do for the security. So when complainants submit to the trust notifier through the due process, make sure that complying with the situation, we forward to the intermediary like DotAsia registry, and they follow their fast track mechanism. The value to DotAsia is a risk reduction because of the better evidence. We provide better evidence, and cost reduction because we transfer evaluation cost to us, to trust notifier, and company value because the consumer trust can be enhanced. That's better registry. And the value to trust notifier is efficiency, is fast. It's much better than mutual legal assistance treaty. Not to mention we don't have so many countries sign the MLAC with Taiwan. And also it's very effective, and because that enforceable, we can enforce that kind of behavior, or it's enforceable. Okay, that's in the future, even the law was defined because for the 21st century, all the technology was being exercised. Cyber criminal technology was exercised in a very low, even zero cost. But for law enforcement, and basically it covers 19th century law and 19th century legal framework with 20th century mature technology. So both technical tool and legal tool need to be upgraded. And that's eventually, in the future, we foresee, not to mention going to metaverse. That's pretty end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Kenny Huang, and please remain on stage. And next, it's time for a media interview. Let's also invite Mr. Edmond Zhong from DotAsia to join us online to join the interview with Mr. Kenny Huang. And now we open the floor to the media. Please raise your questions. 我们现在进行现场的媒体提问。那欢迎所有的媒体朋友呢，可以举手，我们将有工作人员为您递上麦克风。那我们现在就开放，现在所有的媒体朋友可以进行现场的提问，可以针对是 Mr. Edmond Zhong 或是针对黄执行长都可以来进行发问。 那我们现场好，我们后方有位媒体朋友。
我想问一下，刚有提到那个 ICANN 有一个什么可信任人的机制，这部分不知道可不可以再多说明一点？那另外这一次的那个快速通道的机制，可不可以再多说明一下？这样子。
好，我先说明一下。第一部分我先简单讲，因为 ICANN 那个地方我们有 ICANN 的副总裁在那个地方，他会补充说明啊。第一个部分 ，ICANN 已经跟很多 registry、跟很多网际网络的专家呢，互相去规划，包括政策跟法令，包括技术的部分，去推动一个 Trust Notifier 可信任的伙伴的机制。那希望透过这些可信任的伙伴呢，提升网络犯罪的这个通报哦。那透过可信任伙伴，你可以减少我刚刚讲 is better evidence。因为他已经做过了正当调查程序了，所以相对的，当你取得这个通报，表示他不是一个随便人打一个104电话过来，他是事实上是经过一个严谨的审查程序。那为什么它是严谨的审查？因为它是被你认定的 Trust Notifier， 所以这是 ICANN 目前推动的方向。那第二个问题就是快速Fast Track Mechanism 快速通道的机制啊，就是今天如果说我们要求一个，不要说台湾假设我们要求一个境外的注册管理单位，比如 .com、.asia 也好或是 .my 也好，你要叫他把域名下架，这个整个程序呢，就是必须要经过犯罪调查程序，经过犯罪调查，然后移送递检，还要经过3审定验，最后判决出来。判决出来还没有结束，有了判决说确定是违法之后，你拿这个判决启动司法互助程序。那你如果这个司法互助程序一跑下来，假设我们有司法互助了，如果没有司法互助的国家也动弹不得。假设我们有司法互助的国家，整个启动程序跑完超过1年，各位你知道一般犯罪的域名生命周期大概多久？小于2个礼拜。那一般的 IP 地址呢？犯罪的 IP 地址小于24小时。它可以等着你这样1年的 law enforcement， 等到这个 mutual legal assistance treaty 走完了，不可能。所以我们这个快速机制当我们经过这个正当调查程序之后确定的，那因为我们是被认可的信任伙伴，所以我们通报我们的合作对象的时候，他就接受我们这个信任调查，然后直接依照他们跟注册人相关的规约去执行后续的处理程序。不需要经过法院的这些审判3审定验，检察官起诉，最后判决3审定验，再经过司法互助走一趟，那这个是程序会非常非常遥远。我先简单讲到这里。那嘉荣 ，probably you can add a little bit more about ICANN notifier.
Yep, no problem. 刚刚 Kenny 其实已经解释了那个整个的那个流程啊，主要是说，如果你双方已经是彼此有一个协议走这个 Trust Notifier 的话呢，通常呢如果说没有在这个协议之下的话呢，你就会，如果你是一个注册局，有人就发一个 report 说这个域名呢是滥用的话呢，你自己需要有一个自己的一个流程，一个机制去做一些调查，来了解是否这个 report 是确实的。然后呢，要过这一段时间，这个流程可以是挺长的时间，可以是几个月。然后当你已经调查完了之后呢，你那个英文语就叫做 malicious actor， 他可能就已经先换了那个域名了，所以呢，你那时候就已经无法阻止这个 DNS Abuse 的问题。那在这个 Trust Notifier 的那个framework 之下呢，主要就是说两方可以是一个注册局跟另一家比如说在美国呢，它就是有关illegal pharmaceutical 那种非法的那种药物的那些一些公司呢，它就会跟那个官方那边先有一个这种协议，然后那个如果是好像一个 authority 他发那个 report 给你的这个注册局的话呢，直接你就不需要在自己的那个内部的一个流程之下来调查，你就直接是说我已经信任你，知道说你已经在这一方面已经做了 all the necessary steps 来确保说你这个 report 是确实的，所以呢，直接这个注册局就可以把这个DNS abuse 的问题呢直接解决掉。 所以呢，那个 framework 的整个 Trusted Notifier framework 在 ICANN 的框架之下呢，其实是说，在西方国家，在美国呢、欧洲呢，其实已经有这样的一种机制的，已经有这样的一个 framework。可是呢，就是说在全球还其实缺少了很多可以 follow 这样的一个 example 的一种模式。所以呢，特别在亚太区，其实这个模式不常见，所以其实就是 TWNIC 跟 DotAsia 他们有这个 collaboration 呢，就是非常好的一个开始。
我可以再补充一下，
Okay, thank you, Eamon.
听到
Okay, Eamon.
我可以补充一下，就是这个在 ICANN 所谓在 ICANN 的那个 Trusted Notifier 的东西，其实是注册局自己的一个就是 volunteer 的事情，并不是 ICANN 的一个policy。我想比较清楚的讲一下，就是不是 ICANN 的 policy，而且另外一点就是这个 Trusted Notifier 的东西，一般就是注册局跟另外一个可能是讲网络保安或者是其他东西的机构去作为一个 Trusted Notifier。这一次 DotAsia 跟 .TW 的特别的一个突破吧，就是两家顶级域名的一个 Trusted Notifier 的形式去走的。一个我个人来讲，我觉得特别有意义的，就是说，因为很多讲网络保安的公司，或者是他们在看的时候，他们对于顶级域名注册局的角色可能没有那么认识。那可是，所以他们对于要把一个网站封下来的时候，他们积极的程度可能跟这个顶级域的注册局有一点不一样。所以我们跟 TW 的那个 Trusted Notifier 的事情，我个人认为是一个比较重点的一个突破。我们希望其他注册局可以陆陆续续的就加入进来。另外一点就是 Trusted Notifier， 其实这个概念并不是只是做Dns Abuse 的。其实刚才嘉荣讲到，就是这个非法的药品，或者是甚至这个儿童色情的事情，就是 child pornography， 或者是那种child sexual abuse material。那种东西其实也会有我们或者其他的 registry 也会有 Trusted Notifier 的情况。今天比较特别focus 的事情就是 Dns Abuse， 还有就是两家顶级域名互相就是建立一个 Trusted Notifier 的一个方案，就是今天可能这个公报的一个比较特点的地方吧。
好，谢谢。那我们继续开放现场提问。我们右手边这边的朋友。
你好，我想请教一下，就是你们主要就是希望可能透过跨国界携手去打击这样的一个所谓的网络犯罪，这样。那台湾本土自己在产业界或者是说在企业间，你们有预期想要怎么去连结嘛？因为可能说台湾也有很多外商啊，他们可能在台湾设点啊，那势必会有一些就是跨国的商务往来。那你们从中可以扮演什么样的角色去成为可能打击网络犯罪啊，或者是一些虚假的新闻啊、消息这种身份？你们主要会透过什么样的模式，可能跟台湾的公司或者说跨国的企业做一个连结，或者是对，大概是这样。
OK， 我先大概简单说明一下，因为台湾的公司先不谈一般的私部门台湾本身在网络安全、资通安全部门有资通安全管理法，所以它涵盖的面向就是公务部门跟特定非公务部门，包含8大关键基础设施提供者。那有些金融机构就属于这个8大关键基础设施提供者，所以它本身在法规部分也要符合资通安全管理法的一些法律的要件。但是除了这个之外，因为一般的法律要件大部分都属于自我防御型的，就是我怎么在我的公司的围墙之内把这个碉堡筑起来，但是它可以筑起这种碉堡，很难去防范 害侵的网站持续去攻击其他人，或甚至于透过你的供应链回溯回来攻击你这个是有点困难，因为供应链本身就是一个信任合作伙伴，所以透过供应链，为什么很多包括高科技业者很多他们所有的重装备全部都买了，还是会被入侵，常常就是透过供应链产生这个治安的状态。所以我们是希望说，透过我们在一般的像 TWCERT 本身就扮演的是公部门跟私部门之间的情资分享的角色，情资分享的桥梁，还有包括境内跟境外，台湾境内跟境外情资分享的桥梁。那透过这个情资分享呢，我们已经累积大量的这个情资呢。那除了这个之外，我们希望在这个大量情资跟 TWNIC 本身注册管理局的业务的执掌特色相关的部分呢，台湾一年大概在97%、98%。产生的害侵事件都是在境外，全部都是在境外。那境外包括跟我们合作的执法机关，其实大部分都会卡到这个地方。一旦到境外这个案子就准备办理结案了。那包括我刚刚所提的很多害侵的行为，事实上它生命周期时间非常的短几个礼拜已经算非常的长了。那即便再怎么短呢？今天如果说一个钓鱼网站，或者是它伪仿冒，它是金融公司的网站，直接在那边贩售骗取账号。那我们的法律没有办法采取任何作为的时候，那这个就是我们希望从这个地方切入，就是说，即便法律没有办法及时做出合乎法律要求的这些审判或者是要件，那透过我们这样的合作呢，就是刚刚 Eamon 所提的这个 self volunteer， 我们自愿来做这件事情，透过这个自愿来做两个要件，前面就是要经过一个审慎的这个调查程序，那第二个就是快速的通报机制。那在这个地方呢，刚刚提到台湾的台湾的公司呢，我们包括说我们也筹组了台湾高科技联盟所以大概几个主要的台湾高科技联盟，我们也定期把它办理这样的聚会，让它分享这些情资。那我们现在所提供的这种 Trust Notifier 或者是 Fast Track Mechanism， 等于是其中的工具之一。那这些害侵的网站常常就是在境外。如果某些被通报到攻击我们的比如说高科技产业或特定的产业，那经过我们这个 Trust Notifier 的 Network， 在我们这个涵盖的范围之内，我们就可以采取这个快速通关的机制呢，尽快去把这些危害的网站把它移除这是我们目前在推动的一个方向。误会了。这个 Trust Notifier 的时间是 between 我们跟我们的合作伙伴，就是对方像现在是DotAsia， 这是时间是我们这边在控制的。那至于企业这个地方，它随时都可以通报，它通报说它受到哪一种害侵事件。那现在通报的话，本来就有一定的这个通报流程像我刚刚讲，如果是属于资通安全管理法涵盖范围，它有一定的审查流程、一定的通报流程。非资通安全管理法，其实政府也投入很多资源，包括 TWCERT 呢本身也来协助去桥接各个对应的窗口做这样的流程。那这个跟 Trust Notifier 本身来讲，它是一个互补的工具时间要看你现在谈的这个网络犯罪，它的样态是哪一种样态。
好，谢谢执行长。那两位代表有要针对这个问题做补充吗？好，那我们请 Mr. 钟。OK， 不好意思，Sorry。好，那如果没有的话，我们开放下一个提问。好，我们请后方的朋友。
你好，想请问黄执行长，就是台湾电脑网络危机处理协调中心的2010年度12月份的报告显示，网络钓鱼通报的这个件数达432笔，其中以金融诈骗最多。那对于金融业而言的话，那如果遇到这样子的一个就是诈欺的话，会带来很大的风险。那消费者权益要如何去维护？那可以跟我们的国内的一个通报的一些联防的机制是怎么样的内容呢？
OK， 谢谢提问。其实金融诈欺就是刚刚所提的，只要金融机关就是本身就是涵盖在这个资通安全管理法的涵盖范围所以金融机关本身它有固定的通报程序。但目前的通报程序，我刚刚讲通报程序只是通报，知悉有这么一件事情。那真的要防堵呢，除了本身内部的这个我刚刚讲围墙内部的技术，但是常常是害侵行为是发生在境外，因为你的用户呢 根本没有进到你的银行，是到境外被害侵了。所以这种防范的行为呢，我们现在就采取多种管道在处理。就一般的本来就是刑事调查或行政警政机关、司法警察所处理的程序，他们都会去走。那第二个部分，我们跟所有的电信业者呢，包括服务业者，有共同推出一个叫 Dns Abuse， 就是将国内的所有解析器串接在了一起，那上面有订定一个黑名单机制，只要是进到这个黑名单呢，它就会停止解析。所以金融机关是涵盖在这个可以去符合这个黑名单的条款，所以因为它是属于政府重点要防治的对象，所以只要警政单位通报我们可以在第一时间。目前的我们的 SLA 就是上班日2个小时之内移除，就是只要透过境内的解析器的话，2个小时之内可以移除。所以这个是属于移除的解决方案。那现在跟DotAsia的合作呢，就多出另外一个工具出来。如果解析器没有用的时候，他如果用 Google 的解析器呢，他如果发生在DotAsia，就可以透过我们这个快速处理机制呢，去通报我们的DotAsia境外注册管理局。那他可以因为我们是受信任的伙伴呢，经过我们这个所谓的严谨的调查程序确认了，那他可以依据他跟用户的合约呢去做后续的相关的处置。所以这个大概是从几个不同的面向共同来解决这个问题。
好，谢谢执行长回答。那接下来有接下来的媒体朋友要进行提问吗？可以举个手来，我们左手边的朋友。
你好，请问我们还会跟其他更多有注册管理的那个机构签署 MOU 吗？
是的，事实上现在在跟我们讨论的非常的多那因为还没有签，所以我比较不方便讲。那第二个，刚刚ICANN 的副总裁有大概提了一下，除了我们自己之间的签署这个合约呢 ，ICANN 也已经安排在后续的 ICANN 的相关会议，请我们去提出报告。那透过我们这个成功的合作模式呢，也去说服、去告知其他的利害关系人或其他的注册管理局呢，他们也非常乐意透过这样的资讯的分享，了解说我现在已经开始正式建立这样一个合作管道。那我们希望这个信任合作伙伴的网络呢，能够不是只有点跟点，能够慢慢变成点跟线，线到面。那等到一定的普及率之后，其实相对应的网络的空间就会更加的安全一点。
好，谢谢。那我们还有现场的朋友，来前面的这位贵宾。
我想确认一下，就是我们在刚开始做这个要信任合作、可信任伙伴跟快速通报机制的这个时候，我们有遇到什么样的困难吗？然后当初我们是基于什么样子的 idea 或什么样的想法，决定要去做这样的事情？
好，谢谢。我想最主要的噪音是在于依照现在的不管是执法工具或现在标准程序，我们很难去阻挡网络害侵的行为。那网络害侵行为目前只有一条路，就是大家在顾好自己围墙内部的东西，买越多的重装备，把这个围墙盖得越高越好。但是这个是属于假象的，我刚刚讲了，属于那供应链的部分，属于透过你的合法管道账号入侵进来，这个部分很难去防范所以之所以噪音，就是说现有的不管是法律程序、司法程序都很难解决这个问题。尤其我刚刚提了，绝大多数的害侵其实来自境外攻击来自境外。那目前在境外，我们几乎是现行的司法程序几乎是束手无策。我刚刚提了，不是只有台湾，其他国家也一样。所以我们是希望能够快速的采取一些比较可行的方式来做这样的一个机制。那第二个是刚刚提到，就是说这个不是一个新发明，因为信任伙伴其实不是只有在治安，它在很多领域其实都用的蛮多的很多犯罪的领域也用的蛮多的。但是在治安呢，事实上有听到很多讨论，但是很少去发生。那我们追根究底会回到一个原因，就是当你对这个人不信任，基本上你不大可能去相信他背后所推动的这些机制。那所有的 Internet 你可以发现 Internet 非常有趣。我刚刚提到 Internet 其实是被 Cyber Norm 来规范的，其实不是 Regulation， 因为 Internet 目前没有国际法在规范 Internet。所有网络上所自愿实施的各种合规行为，包括我们为什么要用 TCP/IP， 为什么要用 IPv6， 为什么要用 DNS， 都不是法律规范，都是我们自愿性的。那这个自愿性的基础是来自这些标准的规范的订定，这些订定都是由个别的我刚刚讲 trustworthy individual 所定义出来的。所以我们到后来， 我们先把这个 trustworthy individual 先把它串联在一起，去思考可以实施的方案，再透过这些影响呢，扩散到各个不同的组织、各个不同的面向。那最终呢，也许这个国家相对就更干净、更安全。我们刚刚提到，其实台湾是蛮多网络害侵攻击别人的一个主导国家，所以也许我们就有机会去让台湾整个空间变得更干净。那 eventually 就变成一个 trust，变成一个可信赖的，不是只有一个机构，一个可信赖的国家。我想这个是循序渐进来往后推演的。
好，谢谢。那我们有其他的贵宾朋友、媒体朋友要继续提问的吗？好，那我们钟总裁要补充。好，谢谢。
对，只是加一点点，就是刚才其实 Kenny 也提到，不过对于我们来说，其实那个 motivation 是因为那个 trust and notify 的事情，其实很多不同做网络安全的都会跟注册局去讲，或者是怎么样。可是因为注册局能够做到的，就是把整个域名拿掉。那整个域名拿掉，其实它就是一个挺大的一个动作来的。很多时候，这个有出现问题的，可能是域名的一个部分，或者是一个 URL， 并不是整个域名出现问题。那所以很多那种保安的机构跟那个注册局去讨论这个事情的时候，很多时候谈不拢，因为他们提出的那种 take down 可能动不动一小事情就要求注册局去做一个 take down 的工作，可是作为一个注册局不能够因为它这个域名的一个小部分就把整个域名去掉，这个敏感度是作为一个注册局会比较能够接受的，所以就是我们跟 TWNIC 的我特别就是知道大家都是一个顶级域的注册局的话，对于什么类型的那个攻击或者什么类型的一种滥用，应该采取这个 take down， 就是把整个域名去掉这一个方法去处理。那所以这个才形成一个 trust，就是除了 trust， 他会知道这个是一个问题的网页以外呢，就是也有一个 trust， 就是知道如果我们把整个域名拿掉，是一个正确的处理这个滥用的一个方法。所以我觉得这一点也是蛮重要的。
好，谢谢。那我们现场还有其他的提问吗？好，那如果没有的话呢，没有关系，待会儿来宾如果有想到任何的问题，都欢迎在会后进行交流。If you have any further questions, please feel free to discuss with us after the meeting. 那我们是不是也再次掌声谢谢以上所有代表的分享？谢谢钟总裁，也谢谢刚刚一同加入的我们的 Mr. 罗，还有黄执行长，谢谢，可以先回座休息，谢谢。那在这里也提醒大家 ，TWNIC 也即将在3月30号在2022亚太区 DNS 论坛以专题 Establishing a Trusted Notifier Mechanism to Fight DNS Abuse 与国际网络社群成员来进行分享。跨不同 TLD 透过在相互可信任的通报机制之下，希望能够建立更快速沟通的平台，作为双方对应日益增长的网络问题以及安全问题的承诺。也欢迎在座所有的贵宾还有媒体朋友到我们的活动网站来进行报名参加。And there will be an online event establishing a trusted notifier mechanism to fight DNS abuse on March 30 at 4:15 to 5:15 p.m. With inspirational speech, welcome to sign up for the event. 那非常感谢各位今天的参与，也谢谢在座所有的媒体朋友。那 TWNIC DotAsia 签署双边合作网络安全域外效力的记者会就在这里告一个段落。离开时也请记得您的随身物品。Thank you for everyone's participation today. The event has come to an end, and please remember to take your belongings with you when you leave. Once again, thank you for your enthusiastic participation. Thank you very much.